Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we got a project. It's first of all, it's beginning of December. I think today is December 3rd as of filming. We finally have snow on the ground. We're finally getting some winter. I don't know, this has been one messed up year in northern Canada. I don't know if it's been the same wherever you guys are from, but usually we're a couple of weeks into snow and these, minus 15, minus 20 temperatures. But today's the first day that we got some cold temperatures. Cold, minus 20. We're just not, I'm not acclimatized to it yet. So, we're going to do some projects. One of the things I did was I got a fuel extender kit for my little backpack generator. I don't know if any of you use them in your van life, but one tank in the generator runs for maybe 4 to 5 hours under load. So what this does is this replaces the fuel cap. It creates a seal, and then when the generator is running, it's pulling fuel out of that tank while it's creating a vacuum. You'll notice that most generators, the fuel caps have a little a vent that you have to open, right, so it can pull air in as it's taking fuel. So the idea is that with this cap, it'll seal on top there, and you attach a fuel hose, which I have some fuel line right here. It's all coily. And you run that, and you stick the other end of that hose into a fuel tank, right? And as the generator gets pulls its tank under vacuum, it's going to pull fuel from the fuel tank into that tank. Will it work? Who knows? I think this was $25 on Amazon, $25 Canadian. I just for a fuel pickup, I got this is just a piece of brake line. Got it to be about the same size as the inner diameter of our fuel line, which I also got a Canadian Tire. I think this was $10. I'm not sure what the price of this was, but I'm going to say it was under $15. Let's try this out. Let's see if it works. So first thing I got to do is I'm going to cut this fuel line, which got bent a little bit here. I just sat on it. Not that it matters. But a little pipe cutter here. And I'm just going to use that to cut this pipe. There we go, finally. Now I can take this fitting off, and this is going to end up being our fuel pickup. Pardon me. So if this works, what I'm going to end up doing is taking a large 25-liter fuel can, and I'll modify it with a permanent fuel pickup. First thing we're going to do is we're going to have to heat this up a little bit. Squeeze it on there. There we go. That should, when that cools, that should be a nice tight fit, but we do have a hose clamp we can use. I don't imagine I'm going to need all this hose. Let's go with, here's my generator. Yeah, something like that. Half. There. So there's our generator fuel extender. This cap goes on the generator, and we just shove that into a fuel tank, and it should pull fuel from the tank. Only one thing left to do is fire up the generator, and let's give this a try. one thing left to do is just to let the generator run and see if it pulls fuel up through that hose. In theory, it should work as long as pulling the fuel up doesn't create so much vacuum that it stalls out the motor on the generator, if that makes sense. But in theory, it should work as long as we get a seal on the top. That aluminum part that I bought, I don't know if it fit so perfectly on there. It seemed like it did, but it was really easy to kind of cross thread, so maybe that's not exactly the right fit, but well, we'll check her in a couple hours, see how it goes. Alright, for my next upgrade, if you want to call it that, I have, so I don't know if you remember me talking about how I've upgraded to just a 60 amp battery charger. So that just throws straight 60 amps into the system to charge the batteries, and that works really good. And the nice thing about it is, if I'm charging my batteries and say I wanted to make coffee or use my air fryer, on the old system when I was using the inverter charger and it was charging, it would also pass that 110 load along to the shore power. That coupled with the charger would kick out the shore power, right? You'd blow a 20 amp fuse, no problem. So what I've done is, like I said, I've upgraded. I went and got the Lifetime 60 amp battery charger. So that's just straight 60 amps into the system. It doesn't care if I use more than 60 amps, like say running the air fryer or something like that. It just pulls the remaining from the battery. If I'm using less than 60 amps, that surplus goes to charging the batteries. But I would still like to be able to pass through my 110 power to the shore power. So the only way I can really figure out how to do that is to be able to manually switch between passing through the shore power and charging the batteries up. So what I'm going to do is I got a three-way switch, and I got some, well, electrical boxes and other various things here. So what I'm going to do is basically the live wire will come to the three-way switch. It will direct to either circuit. One circuit is going to power the charger, and the other circuit will power the inverter. Right now I still have the old inverter charger. I'm removing that. That's going to be used for another project. I'm going to buy just a straight 3000 watt inverter. But the inverter also has the ability that if I'm plugged into shore power, it will just pass the 110 power directly onto shore power. So with the three-way switch, I'll be able to either select pass through for the inverter or flip it over and power the charger to, well, charge up the batteries. I have, this is a 16 gauge extension cord is what I'm going to use to wire the circuit with. And then I have lots of other little goodies. Alright, so here is where, let's get this out of the way for now. That's my carbon monoxide detector. So this is where we're going to put the switch. This electrical panel here is got my 110 current. That just goes up and plugs my TV. This timer here is wired to my block heater. So all I have to do is hit that and my block heater's on, runs for up to half an hour. The switch was originally going to be power for heated floors, but later, after just living in the van, I've decided that I don't need to have electrically heated floors. With the vents angled to blow across the floors, they're plenty warm. Alright, so I got my cable pushed through. Like I said, I'm just using a 16 gauge extension cord. Alright, so if you guys have never done house wiring before, I don't recommend you do it. Leave it to the professionals. of which I am totally not. But just so you know, there's little things like, I don't know how you're gonna be able to see it right here. That says strip gauge. That's how long you should be stripping your wires. Look at that, judge that one pretty much perfect. This one's a little short, so we're gonna take a little more off it. There we go. So that tells you, that little gauge tells you how much to strip back in order for it to fit in properly. I like these new style. You just stick the wire in and clamp it down. Okay, we're not gonna use ground. So what we have for a three-way switch is your hot wire comes in, and then they have two travel wires. These are so the power is going to come in, and then the switch is going to determine which travel wire it goes out, which is then going to get wired at the other end to a circuit. So we'll go black is our hot. And white and green will be our two travel. There, just like that, clip them down, in they are. In they are. Connections made. I always like to give a little wiggle test, make sure they're seated firmly, which they are. Well, now what I have to do is run the cable down to the back, which means me crawling around in my garage. All right, so we're back here in the electrical area, which I really need to finish this and wire lights back here so I can just flip them on and have everything lit up. But for now, this is what we got. Now, I'm not exactly sure. Well, I don't have my tools to mount it anyway. So we're just going to make this full length and we can just shorten it later. Electrical box to mount it in. So here's our plug-in. One's going to be, say, straight through to shore power, whatever you want to call it, shore power, and the other one is going to be the charger. And how we're going to do that is, so we get this real close here, right in the middle here, lift this cover up, there's a little tab. Gotta get some better lighting going on here. See that little metal tab in there? When I break that tab, it will separate the two plugs, top and bottom. And there we go. And that's where our two travel wires will come in. So from the actual plug that goes outside, we will wire in the white and the white, which is your neutral wire, the green, which is your ground. The hot wire is going to get joined up to this, the hot wire coming from the through plug. Hot wire will get wired to here. It will travel off to the three-way switch and it will come back on either one of these traveler wires, which the two traveler wires, because remember we now separated them, will go into here separately. And then depending on where the switch is, either this plug will have power or this plug will have power. That's the idea anyway. I guess we're gonna find out. Possibly when we plug it all in, all the smoke will come out. Who knows? Stick around. Let's find out together. Alright, so that'll just plug into, I don't know what you want to call it, the through plug that brings the power into the van. These wires have to come in to the box. I should have twisted them first before I stuck them through, but worries, we'll call pretty and nice. So these are the power in. So, like I said, white goes to white. And the green goes to green. Tug test, make sure it's in that tight. Just a little bit further, there we go. Whoa, let's keep that off the live electrical system. As you remember, our two traveler wires will go in here. One in there. One down in there. Now these two wires get joined together. And I'm not even sure how you pronounce it. Moret? Well, twist-on wire connector is what they call it anyway. Whoa, whoa, as we throw them all around. There we go, there's our circuit. So here's the power, gets plugged into the through power for sure. That comes in here, our neutral wire. Remember that we left the metal pin in this, so that's neutral for both. We put our ground, right, coming in from our plug. Our ground is in the ground, so we're protected. Our hot wire went out on the traveler cable to the three-way switch at the front, and depending on the switch, it will come back on either one of these, activating those. So now all I have to do is button it up and plug our charger and stuff in. See how this works. All right, so here's our moment of truth. As you can see, we're getting power in from the generator. That's the charger. This flashing light here means that the inverter is not on shore power. So now when I reach down and flip the switch, it shuts off the charger, shuts off the charger, and then it, as you see, the green light here now came solid. That means the inverter is now on shore power. But because we still have the inverter charger plugged in, that's gonna kick in right away and start charging because we're below value. But at any rate, the switch works. That is perfect. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. So I can now flip between the charger or what will eventually just be a pass through to shore power once I replace the inverter charger with just a straight inverter. But that whole project did take a couple of hours. Generator's been running for, I would say, 2.5 hours. I would think that that should be enough vacuum that it should have sucked some fuel into that hose. And let's go check it out, see if this fuel extender works. As you can see, it doesn't look like there's any fuel being pulled into the yeah, I'm going to say this Amazon gimmick is a bust. Certainly not working for my champion, I don't know what you call them, briefcase generators, suitcase generators. So that's a bust. But, you know, it's not the end of the world. Every 5 hours, I'll have to put more fuel in it. Oh well. Alright guys, it is getting later in the afternoon. I have to work tomorrow, which means I have to drive up to Snow Lake. And I've got a big mess I've got to clean up in the van, so until next time guys, stay safe, have some fun, get out there and have yourselves an adventure. Thanks for checking it out. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Later.